Hey guys, it's me Ryan from Illuminerdi. We have here a very special guest today. We have Scarpina herself, Sabrina Lu. Hello, Sabrina. How are you?
Good, good. How are you, Ryan?
Doing good, doing excellent, actually. Yes. So, of course, Sabrina, you are Scorpina. Get it? Sabrina Scorpina. Um, Let me ask you this. So, first battle for the grid, and now lightning figure. What has this whole experience been for you, and what do your kids think about their mom being immortalized in that way?
Well, it's super fun. I mean, I have to say the loyalty and just everything in this fandom has just really been amazing. And I didn't really discover how sort of far-reaching things were really till I did a Power Morphicon. I ran into Steve Cardenas just in real life, and he was the one that mentioned, he's like, you should do a Power Morphicon. I'm like, well, yeah, what's that? So then sort of got back into the fold. And then, yeah, the whole thing, just even during the pandemic, for the action figure to come out and for the video game stuff to all that happen, getting to do the voiceover, in my own closet and that sort of thing. Um, was really cool. Like, you just don't even think about getting to do revisit a character this far, how many years since that time? Like nearly 30 years now, right? Um, and I'll have to say the other thing that's been really fun is the comic books.
Hmm.
There's the comic books, and they're even using, she's named Sabrina when she's in her human form and everything, which I have my own, like, I don't know actual any of the actual, like, truth of it, but, at the audition, Sabrina was already on the, script, the name.
Okay.
But, I submitted my headshot, so I do have this little theory that as they're looking through all of the headshots and they're still deciding on what like, mortal name will be when she's in disguise as a student, um, that they're like, "Oh, that's a good name," like, not really knowing. I mean, they're calling in all of us to come and read for the part. So that's my own little theory of how that happened. I mean, I'd have to actually have a conversation with the casting director, or the writers, or whoever, and they might be like, "No, it was just completely random. It's obviously a name that has so many of the same letters as Scorpina." And so, but I just think that was kind of fun to see in the comic, because then it's very obvious from that episode, right? Like,
Hmm.
that's what's kind of the other amazing thing is it was only that one episode where they needed her to be a student and come and talk, and previous to that she was all the original Japanese footage. So it was, they didn't need an American actress to play her. And then, but from that, the action figure is based on that episode as well, which the really telltale sign is that the Aisha regular head has the yellow scrunchie, which is straight out of that, episode. So I even have a picture, like, on a break. She has like a jacket on, but she has the yellow scrunchie, and like, um, Johnny's eating a burrito. We're just like hanging out like on a break, but it's just so funny because I'm like, that's what, well, also the fact that it's Aisha. So I mean, just being Aisha at all, whatever hairdo, but at least, um, because that's really when Scorpina came to the second season, when Aisha was there, right?
Hmm.
So that I don't know why that's kind of neat too, because it would be very easy for, the one episode that I did to kind of be very overshadowed by the other appearances of Scorpina, the original footage, um, in the first season. But by some pure luck, Goldar's Vice Versa made like enough of an impact to be part of the comic book and the action figure and all that fun stuff. So super fun. And as far as like my kids, I think, are just completely nonplussed by the whole thing. So they it's I think it's just a fun little anecdotal thing. I don't think that they're now, older, where they're kind of like, eh. I mean, at the time I was going to the cons and everything, the first few, they didn't have my youngest, no, my second youngest son is the only one that came with me the first time. And then, when I think I've mentioned this before, but like, I sent him out to go this was the year we were in one small room, so I could, like, see him and we're nobody had the big, like, curtains and all
Mhm.
of that. We were all just at tables, so I could see the whole room. So gosh, because 10 years he was, like, 6 or 7. So I, like, let him walk around and, like, kinda get some souvenirs, and he came back with only Pokemon and Star Wars stuff. So he just, like, Star Wars or, like, Power Rangers? What are you talking about? So anyway, and when they were real little, I was like, "Well, I don't really want them to watch this because there's fighting," as if, you compare it to now and it's, like, ridiculous, like, the violence and everything else, but at the time, I was like, "I don't want them to see mommy fighting, like, big, all the fighting the good guys or whatever," but I
Mhm,
think they've had
mhm.
they've had fun at the cons, as well as far as, like, getting to see some of, like, the YouTubers that they like and that kinda stuff. So they've come to more recent cons and everything than, but that first one was kinda funny, and they were like, "Wait a minute, you got interviewed by this YouTuber or that YouTuber," and they knew, like, Black Nerd Comedy and, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, we see each other every time." There's, super nice guy, so, yeah.
Yes. Now, you did mention Johnny. Speaking of Johnny, your character was built up to be a love interest for Johnny on Bosch's character, Adam Park. Was there any attraction there at the time, and was there talks to have you have a recurring role or storyline for that season?
Oh, yeah, I mean, well, I think because I got found out, like, it
Hmm.
would've been really hard to have me recur and be like, "Hey, you don't remember me, do you?" But, like, as far as with that same thing of coming down and being a student, since I totally got busted when, oh my gosh, drawing a blank on the teacher's name, but when she's like, "We don't have a new student named Sabrina," and everyone's like, "Dun, dun, dun," so that was, like, the moment that it was just pretty obvious that I was, and then actually transforming into Scorpina at the tree and that sort of thing. Um, but yeah, I mean, I love seeing Johnny at cons and things like that, but I think that, I mean, I'm older than all of them are, so they were closer to the true age of the character, and, I was playing high school characters, at that time, but I was in my mid-20s. I was, older than they were. So, of course, he's a cute person, right? But yeah, I would say probably, we didn't even spend that much time together, like, off camera. I think I hung out more with Steve because he was, like, helping me with the little kata and stuff like that, and, just we would just sit around stretching. I mean, if you've seen Steve do any of his martial arts, he's very strong and flexible and, like, then it turned out his sister I know his 2 sisters really well, actually, and so his sister married a friend of ours, so then we that's where we ran into each other at their wedding. So, yeah, super small world stuff, so, uh I don't know if that answered the question. But anyway, as far as recurring, I think it would have been difficult plot-wise. I think she would have had to come back just purely in villain form,
Hmm.
and then I'm not sure if they could figure out, like, where the plot was gonna go from there. It would have been nice, to come back and do some of the stuff that, she got to do in the original series, or I love the way that the comic books spun her
Hmm.
off with, just kinda hanging out, disguised as a person, and it's really funny to see Goldar as, he's, like, supposed to blend in, but he's just clearly not human. But so those are kind of funny, but um I like seeing that stuff. I don't ca Kent, he sends me, like, the stuff from the comic books, and I'm like, "Oh, wow, that's really cool that they have, like, a little plot going on for her," and then also just explaining where she got off to, because initially, when I started doing the cons, I think
Hmm.
one of the things that surprised me was people would walk up and say, "So why wouldn't you come back? You are the reason Scorpina didn't come back to the show because they said they could not get the actress, that Sabrina Lu wouldn't come back," and I'm like, "What?" Like, that's news to me, because at the time, especially, like, struggling actress, if someone said, "Hey, do you wanna come do this TV show again?" I would have been like, "Yes, absolutely. Or they would have just recast me, let's be honest. So I think if something had been written, they wouldn't be like, if we can't get Sabrina Lu, forget it. So that would be, I would love it if she had more story, and it's neat that she's getting to have that through a little bit through like reminiscing in the video games, but having a little more, a little different personality because it's me voicing her even in her total villain form. And then also the storyline she's getting to have in the comics, like that's really cool to me too.
Yes. Now, speaking of the comic books, Scarpina was a major plot point for Hyperforce and in the comics. In your mind, what other story arc did you want to explore with her character?
Well, it's funny. I've always thought it'd be really fun to have her and Goldar, in like almost being like, parents, and having their kids like playing on the soccer team and trying not to get too riled up, and then becoming their monsters. And so 'cause that'd be bad form at, like, a kid's soccer game. So, but you know how parents are always getting, like, too it would be like one of those shows, like, like 30 Rock or those kinds of things where basically you're kind of in disguise as, like, a regular family, but you're totally aliens, not to mention in our case where we're actually villains. So, that kind of stuff. I mean, it'd be, a la Wizards of Waverly Place, kind of thing. So, um maybe we'd same kind of thing, we'd have our own, like, we'd have a band or something, but anyway, it'd be just fun to see, like, her have, that character, and that's why getting little glimpses of it in the comic books is super fun. But I would say just more stuff where I don't wanna say, obviously they're not human, but where you just see that humanity coming out. So being disguised as humans so much, even the whole little thing with the taffy, in the where it's one of those things, what, "Oh, taffy? I'll have some taffy," kind of thing, like, she just comes off, it's almost very, like, a la, um, Monica from Friends when she's, like, hiding and she's like, "Mm, chicken?" Or, I can't even remember what the exact lines were. I'd like some chicken." So it's sort of very, makes them more fun. It makes her, that part of her personality come out, because as you're just pretending to be human, you actually start taking on some of those characteristics.
Interesting. Now, lastly, you are an incredible advocate for autism awareness. Off the top of your head, what would be the top 5 tips you had for friends and family of people, especially kids, that experience autism or other disorders in the autism spectrum?
Well, I would say I thought this is the one I thought about a little bit more. I'm glad you like sent me the question, because like 5, I was like, wow. Because the biggest thing I always say to like a newly diagnosed, a family that's got a new diagnosis, is, number one, just breathe, take a deep breath, and just, everything is going to happen, and your attitude about everything is going to make a huge difference. So take a big breath. Remember that no one knows your child as well as you know your child, and that the best thing you can do is kind of gather the information, but then follow your gut, right? So, and if things don't feel right, then they probably aren't right for your family, right? So there's so many different things, because every single diagnosis, every single human is different. And so what works for one family is not going to work for every family. And I think the most important thing is just that word family. Anything you can do to bring joy to your whole family. Find the things that bring joy to you, to your child, and just expand upon those things. And try to be very, I don't wanna say, like, just relaxed, but I think that's what helps me a lot is just this feeling of, if you are having, like, a lot of tension and anxiety, if anything, having a sensory processing disorder, which is generally part of autism, you're gonna pick up on that stuff even more. You're going to pick up on that anxiousness, and you're going to pick up on that stress. So, when we can kind of take a deep breath and eliminate that from ourselves, we're actually in a better place, or I think this is all just my opinion, a better place to help our child, right? And
Mhm.
to look for the things that make them happy. And then of course it's like you're gonna feel all this pressure. Well, they need to meet this milestone or learn this or learn that. Well, first of all, their milestones are gonna be their milestones. And, if somebody had said from age 13 to 15, your child will actually speak more words than he's spoken clearly his whole life, I would have been like, that seems like a really that's not possible, right? But that's exactly what happened with us. And so we're getting sounds and approximations of words now that we weren't getting actually even pre-pandemic. So you just never know. There's no fixed timeline. Like people will ask questions and very innocently so, they'll ask questions in groups like my child is 8. Will I ever hear him say a sentence? And someone's like, I don't think so, or whatever it is, because oh, the standardized test is only standardized to 7 years old or whatever. Well, none of that really matters because it's all about each individual. And to just if you if you can make a fill a person's life with joy, that's a win. That's the win right there. And then also just I actually wrote things down. I want to make sure I don't forget. So hold on. Because you know me, I'll just blabble on and on. Okay. So yeah, number one, gather all the info and then follow your gut. Mention that. No one knows your child as well as you do. Find ways to fill their lives with joy. If you discover a spark, then run with it. So make sure everyone on their team totally believes in your child. If anyone doesn't, then they don't deserve to be there.
Mm.
So don't start being like in all these fights with your team because if they don't agree, they don't agree and they just need to be out of there. And sometimes that might mean homeschooling, and that's what it did mean for us. I'm not saying that's for every family. I know it's not possible for all families, but for us, it was far and away the best choice that we made, going into, I believe, 2nd grade. And then one of the biggest things that I see happening out there is, and this is probably all children, but think about building confidence for all of us, for all humans, right? Is that we are more likely to try things if we feel confident not only in our ability, but in the fact that the people around us will love and support us no matter what. So I feel like, you know, um, and I will also make a little plug here that for literacy is that sometimes, especially when our kids are non-speaking, there's a
Mhm.
big gap in the teaching of literacy because they don't demonstrate it in the way that this program is meant to have it demonstrated. And so they don't and they work in a very linear path of learning. They're like, well, they couldn't say the alphabet here, so I'm just going to sort of stop teaching, as opposed to the fact that if you just keep teaching and then like back up when you need to like reinforce or you notice a gap or something like that, but keep engaging them, um and sort of we'll say model without expectation for like AAC users, people using different, which is totally true, but also teach without expectation in a weird way. I know that's going to sound strange. Teach and build confidence without expectation. Don't require a certain output for you to keep giving positive input. So even like reading, you might think they're not listening to me. But how do you know that? And what's the worst case? You've read a book out loud, right? So, I mean, I remember when EJ, our youngest, when we were first homeschooling, he was like, I am not sitting still at a table with you. That's just not happening. So I would walk around the backyard, follow him around with a book, reading, bringing out things so he could spell words or work on things and stuff like that. Just meet them where they're at, get outside as much as you can because I think being in nature is like super important. You can learn so much just being out there. And I think I told this to somebody the other day, but basically, like, I remember one time, particularly the house we lived in before this house. Um, Probably should have like background, gotten rid of mess. Oh well, how nice your background is. Anyway, the The one time he climbed into a tree, and I'm sure part of it was like, let's get a and I could have easily been like, "He doesn't wanna do anything. He's climbed into a tree. He doesn't want me to work on talking about what's going on." And I just sort of followed him up the tree a little bit, and I said, "Okay, tell me anything, anything you want." And then I gave him, like, a board with the alphabet on it, and he spelled out orange. And I thought, "Okay, so I don't say anything orange, but, he loves colors, so he probably just wanted to spell the word orange." Then I got farther up into the tree, and he could see over the fence into the neighbor's yard, and there was an orange tree in the neighbor's yard. So he was absolutely, like, communicating something that he saw, and, like, little moments like that that reminded me, okay, he's listening, he's observing, everything is coming in. Now I need to help in any way I can for him to get it out, right? As a non-speaking child. There's all obviously a huge spectrum of autism, so I can only really speak from personal experience from ours. And, uh, and so that was really interesting to see. And then also one time I would tell the people, like, working with him, I said, "There's no, like, 'Oh, do you want a break?' And he'll every time say yes, and then you get on your phone and he just does whatever." I said, "When you're having a break from an activity, read to him. Read to him from this book," which was, like, What Your Second Grader Needs to Know, which is a great book for read out loud stuff. And so and then he's like, "Well, he just walks away. I started to read and he just walked away." I'm like, "Then follow him. Follow him, keep reading." And he followed him, he kept reading, and then he started reading about the Roman aqueducts. And he's like and in a way he was like, "I'm just gonna do what Sabrina told me to do, but I don't really know if he's listening." And probably deep down didn't believe he was listening. And then all of a sudden he looked down and EJ was actually making little aqueducts out of mud near the hose so he could run water down, through the yard. And I said, so he told, and that was the moment he's like, I realized he's absolutely listening. So when we just don't say things, or we don't read, or we don't do all that stuff, we're not giving them as much of a chance to get all that input and get all that information. And then try any strategies you can to help them with the output piece of it. And in our case, we did lots of different programs and everything like that, but I did the same phonics program that I did with the other 3 kids that I homeschooled, and, um, and I didn't know. I didn't He wasn't able to say, the same way they could. They could read the letters and they could say it and everything, but he followed along, or I followed him along, and we got through that whole book, and I just was like, as long as I've introduced all of these concepts, and then lo and behold, he was able to show us slowly but surely what he could spell and how he could communicate, and that was the most important thing to me because I remember once I had a I had a hold if he would melt down, and I can remember once, like, needing to scoop him up, and I'd get one hand over his shoulder, one hand through his legs, and so he was this long, and I could hold him with his legs and arms facing out so that he couldn't hurt himself or me, right? He could kick and punch and just face the other way. And all of a sudden, I was holding him one day, and I thought, when when he grows like 2 inches, I can't there's no way. I can't physically do this anymore, right? I will not be able to do this. He's gonna get much, much bigger than me. And so I said, before that happens, I need to help figure out a way for him to communicate. Why is he so frustrated right now? What is it that he doesn't want to do? Which in that case was he didn't want to go to his sister's basketball game. But if he could have communicated that to me, I could have said, fine, let's get back in the car. We'll just wait for them or whatever, right?
Mhm.
But instead, he just had to, like, turn into a blob in the parking lot, and then I had to scoop up what basically felt like quicksand, you know? He could basically turn to liquid when he did not want to be, put somewhere, and it was like managing to get him into that grip, and it was such a different time, and then realizing as we helped him organize all of this stuff that was going, I honestly think, at least in my experience, a lot of times there's so much going on. It's not that they're not thinking about what's going on. They've got so much going on, it's just focusing it in on what they want to get out and then how to help them do that. So it's in some ways, it's not helping them make connections, it's helping them make the connection and express the connection they want to. It's all there, it's all flying around like, all the signals, it's just getting it to focus, um, and filter just I think filtering is a big thing. You wanna filter what's important on the input side and what's important on the output side. And, but yeah, just providing that very comforting, nurturing, supportive environment to make all that possible, to keep expectations high and, but without pressure at the same
Mhm.
time, which is a kind of a tough little, balance. So you're always kind of looking for that sweet spot, which again, no one is going to know that as well as their parent, I think, because that's why we decided it made the most sense to homeschool, because then the people that know him the best are the ones that are helping him learn, and the
Yeah.
people that believe in him, m- even in some instances believe in him more than he might believe in himself in that moment, are the ones there. So if we
Mm.
if we all had that opportunity to just be surrounded by the people that believe in us the most, that love us the most all the time, and that we're always encouraged and supported, what all the things we could accomplish. So I guess that would be the thing. But the if I have one word, it would just be breathe, especially take that time, just relax, and make sure to find joy in every day. And even if that means you didn't get through the checklist that you had, if you did something that brought a smile or anything, then that was a win.
Right on. Right on. So yes, again, Sabrina, thank you for answering my questions, and this is a great interview. So thank you so much for being my special guest.
Oh yeah, anytime.
Yes.
And
So again,
very nice barong there, Ryan, as well.
yes, gotta represent the culture, right? Gotta represent the
Yeah.
culture. Yes, thank you, Ate. Yes. For you guys don't know, Ate means sister and older sister Tagalog, Filipino language. So, sorry guys. Again, Sabrina, thank you guys. Thank you again for being my special guest. And this is Ryan from Illuminerdi signing out, guys. Bye, guys.